The Kansas City sun beat down mercilessly on the cracked pavement as Travis Kelce slowed his car at the intersection. What caught his eye wasn't the usual street vendor or homeless person asking for change. It was two identical little girls, no more than 9 years old, sitting behind a makeshift lemonade stand constructed from a cardboard box and a folding chair that had seen better days. Their matching blonde pigtails were disheveled, their clothes wrinkled, stained. But what stopped Travis cold was the look in their eyes. These weren't the bright, hopeful expressions of kids playing entrepreneur for pocket money. These were the hollow, desperate stares of children who had seen too much, too soon. The handwritten cardboard sign propped against their stand read in shaky crayon letters, "Lemonade $1, save our family." Below it, in smaller print that was barely legible, "Our house burned down 8 days ago." Travis pulled over, his heart already sinking as he took in the scene more carefully. The girls' hands trembled slightly as they gripped their plastic cups, not from nervousness, but from exhaustion. Dried tear tracks were visible on their dirt-smudged cheeks, and their forced smiles couldn't hide the fear radiating from their small frame. As he approached, he could hear their quiet conversation. "Lily! Nobody's stopping anymore," the slightly smaller twin whispered, her voice cracking. "We've been here since sunrise and only sold 12 cups. We can't give up, Emma," her sister replied, though her own voice wavered with uncertainty. "Daddy said we need $2,400 by tomorrow, or we have to live in the car forever." $2,400 in 24 hours from selling dollar lemonade. Travis felt something shatter inside his chest as the mathematical impossibility of their situation hit him. These weren't just kids playing store. These were children carrying the weight of their family's survival on their 9-year-old shoulders. He crouched down to their eye level, and both girls straightened up, recognizing him despite their circumstances. "Hi there," he said gently. "I'd like some lemonade, please." Emma's eyes filled with tears of relief, while Lily fumbled for a cup with shaking hands. "How many cups do you girls need to sell to save your family?" Travis asked, though he already knew the devastating answer. Lily's bottom lip trembled as she whispered the words that would haunt him forever. 2,400 cups, mister, but we only have until tomorrow morning." The weight of their impossible task hung in the air like a death sentence. Travis stared at these two small warriors, knowing that what he chose to do in the next 60 seconds would either restore their hope or crush what little remained of their childhood innocence. The clock was ticking, and everything was about to change. Travis bought 50 cups on the spot, pressing $500 into Lily's trembling hand. For a moment, the transformation in both girls, magic. Their eyes lit up with genuine hope for the first time in over a week, and they actually looked like children again, instead of tiny adults drowning in responsibility. "Emma, look! We made $500, Lily screamed, clutching the money like it was made of gold. "We can do this! We really can save the family." The girls hugged each other and danced around their little stand, their joy so pure and infectious that other drivers began to slow down and take notice. For 20 precious minutes, Travis watched as customer after customer stopped to buy lemonade from the suddenly energized twins. "Mr. Travis, thank you so much," Emma said, running up to hug his leg. "You gave us hope when we thought nobody cared anymore. Daddy's gonna be so proud when we show him the money." Travis watched them pack up their stand with renewed energy, chattering excitedly about surprising their father at the motel where they were staying. Their enthusiasm was heartbreaking because he knew $500, while generous, was barely a dent in what they actually needed. "We'll be back tomorrow morning," Lily announced confidently. "We're gonna sell all the lemonade in Kansas City if we have to." As Travis drove away, he couldn't shake the image of those two small faces filled with desperate hope. He knew he should feel good about helping, but the math was relentless. Even if they sold non-stop for 24 hours, they'd need to find 2,000 more customers willing to pay $1 for lemonade. His phone rang as he pulled into his driveway. It was his assistant reminding him about a charity gala that evening, and suddenly the irony hit him like a punch to the gut. He was about to spend more on a single dinner plate than those girls needed to save their family. Yet he'd driven away, leaving them to face an impossible task alone. That night, Travis couldn't focus on anything. The charity event felt hollow and performative compared to the raw desperation he'd witnessed on that street corner. While wealthy donors applauded speeches about helping those in need, he kept thinking about two 9-year-old girls somewhere in a cheap motel, probably lying awake planning how to sell 1,900 cups of lemonade in 18 hours. He left the gala early and drove back to the intersection, but the girls were gone. The corner looked abandoned, with only a few drops of spilled lemonade on the concrete, as evidence they'd ever been there. The next morning, Travis arrived at the corner before sunrise, expecting to find the girls setting up their stand with the same determined desperation from the day before. Instead, he found something that made his blood run cold. Marcus Morris, a man who looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 days, was standing next to their broken-down Honda Civic with 2 small suitcases and a garbage bag full of what remained of their possession. His face carried the hollow expression of a man who'd lost everything and was about to lose the last of his dignity. The girls were sitting on the curb next to their father, their lemonade supplies scattered around them. But they weren't setting up shop. They were crying. "Daddy, what do we do now?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know, baby," Marcus replied, his voice breaking. "The motel kicked us out this morning, said we had to pay up front for another week or leave immediately." Travis felt his heart stop. They weren't just trying to raise money to get back on their feet anymore. They were literally homeless. 2 little girls and their devastated father, sitting on a curb at 6 in the morning with nowhere to go and no plan beyond selling lemonade to strangers. "But we have to keep trying," Lily said through her tears, standing up and wiping her face with determination that no 9-year-old should ever have to summon. "We can't give up. Maybe today will be different." She began unpacking their supplies with shaking hands, her sister joining her, despite the tears streaming down both their faces. Watching them attempt to maintain hope in the face of complete catastrophe was the most heartbreaking thing Travis had ever witnessed. Marcus Morrison looked at his daughters with a mixture of pride and devastating guilt that spoke to every fear any parent had ever carried. These children were trying to save their family when it should have been his job to protect them from ever having to worry about such things. "Girls," Marcus said softly, "maybe we should think about calling social service. Maybe they can find you somewhere safe to stay while Daddy figures things out." "No!" both girls screamed simultaneously, the terror in their voices cutting through the morning air like a knife. "We stay together," Emma declared, with a fierceness that belied her tiny frame. "Families don't split up. We'll sell enough lemonade. We just have to try harder." Travis watched this family disintegrating in real time, held together only by the desperate determination of 2 little girls who refused to accept that sometimes trying harder isn't enough. He knew he was witnessing either the most inspiring display of resilience he'd ever seen, or the most tragic example of children being forced to carry burdens that would crush most adults. Either way, he couldn't walk away. Not anymore. By noon, the girls had managed to sell exactly 37 cups of lemonade. Travis had watched from his parked car as they approached every pedestrian, knocked on business doors, and even tried flagging down drivers at red lights. Their determination was unwavering, but the cruel mathematics of their situation remained unchanged. Marcus sat in the car with his head in his hand, occasionally getting out to help his daughters, but mostly just trying to hold himself together while watching them carry the weight of the family's survival. The sight of a grown man reduced to complete helplessness while his children fought for their lives was almost unbearable to witness. "Daddy, we made $47 so far," Lily announced proudly, running to the car with her coffee can full of crumpled bills and loose change. "We're getting there." Marcus managed a smile for his daughters, but Travis could see the man calculating the impossible gap between $47 and the thousands they still needed. At their current rate, they'd need to sell lemonade for 6 months straight to reach their goal. Around 2 o'clock, their first real breakthrough came when a local news van pulled up. Rachel Martinez, a reporter from Channel 9, had heard about the girl's story from someone who'd bought lemonade the day before. "I'd like to do a story about your lemonade stand," she told the girls, setting up her camera. "Would that be okay?" For the first time since Travis had met them, both girls' faces lit up with genuine excitement. They posed proudly behind their stand, explained their situation with remarkable composure for 9-year-olds, and even demonstrated their lemonade-making technique. "We lost everything in the fire," Emma explained to the camera. "But we're not giving up. We're gonna save our family by working hard and never quitting. The 5-minute segment aired during the evening news, and the response was immediate. By 6 o'clock, a steady stream of customers was arriving at their corner. People brought friends, shared the story on social media, and several customers paid well above the asking price for their lemonade. For a few magical hours, it looked like a miracle was actually happening. The girls were laughing, Marcus was smiling, and their coffee can was filling up with bills instead of just coin. They sold over 200 cups between 6 and 9 o'clock, raising nearly $400. "We did it, Emma!" Lily screamed, hugging her sister as they counted their money under a streetlight. "We really might save the family." But miracles in real life are fragile things, and this one shattered at exactly 9:15 when Officer Daniel Cruz pulled up in his patrol car. "Girls, I'm sorry, but I've had complaints about the crowds and traffic," he said gently, clearly hating every word he had to speak. "You need a vendor's license to sell on public property, and the permits office has been closed since 5. You'll have to shut down tonight." The devastation that followed was complete and immediate. Both girls collapsed into tears, but these weren't the frustrated tears of children being told no. These were the heartbroken sobs of little soldiers who'd fought their hardest and been told the war was over, just as victory seemed possible. "But we were so close," Emma wailed, clutching the money they'd earned. "People were coming to help us. They wanted to buy our lemonade." "I know, honey," Officer Cruz replied, his own voice thick with emotion. "But I have to enforce the law. You can apply for a permit tomorrow, but that takes 3 to 5 business days to process." 3 to 5 business days? They didn't have 3 to 5 hours, let alone days. Marcus got out of the car and approached the office, and Travis could see he was fighting to maintain his composure. "Sir, please, my daughters aren't hurting anyone. They're just trying to help their family." "I understand, Mr. Morrison, and I wish there was something I could do." But multiple people called in complaints about traffic congestion and blocking sidewalks. "My hands are tied." Sit. As the crowd dispersed and the girls packed up their stand in defeated silence, Travis watched a family's last hope evaporate in the face of bureaucratic red tape. The cruel irony wasn't lost on him. Just as the community had finally responded to help these children, the system stepped in to stop them from being helped. "It's not fair," Lily whispered to her sister as they loaded their supplies into the car. "We were working so hard. We were following all the rules, except one stupid paper nobody told us about. Maybe we can find somewhere else to sell tomorrow," Emma suggested weakly, though even she seemed to understand that tomorrow might be too late. Marcus helped his daughters into the car, then stood for a moment looking at the corner where they'd spent the last 2 days fighting for their survival. When he finally spoke, his words carried the weight of complete defeat. "Girls, Daddy needs to tell you something. The money we made today, it's wonderful, and I'm so proud of you both. But it's not enough. We're going to have to make some very hard decisions about what happens next." The silence that followed was deafening. 2 9-year-old girls sat in the back seat of a broken-down car, processing the fact that their superhuman efforts hadn't been enough to save their family. The adults had failed them. The system had failed them, and now they were failing themselves. Travis watched the Honda Civic pull away from the curb, its taillights disappearing into the darkness like the last embers of hope being extinguished. He sat in his own car for another hour, staring at the empty corner where 2 little girls had fought harder than most adults ever would, only to be defeated by circumstances completely beyond their control. That night, he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emma's face when the police officer told them to shut down. He saw Lily's determined expression crumbling into despair. He saw Marcus Morrison realizing that his daughter's heroic efforts hadn't been enough to save them from homelessness. At 3 in the morning, Travis got in his car and drove through the neighborhoods around the intersection, looking for the Honda Civic. He needed to know where they'd gone, needed to make sure they were safe, needed to do something more than just watch a family disintegrate from a distance. He found them parked behind a 24-hour diner, all 3 of them sleeping in the car, with the windows cracked open for air. The girls were curled up in the back seat, under a thin blanket, their father stretched uncomfortably across the front seats, one arm draped protectively toward his daughter. Even in the sight of 2 little girls sleeping in a car because they'd been prevented from selling lemonade to save their family was the moment Travis realized that being a bystander was no longer an option. These children had fought harder than anyone should ever have to fight, and they deserved someone who would fight just as hard for them. Tomorrow, everything was going to... Travis was waiting at the intersection before sunrise, but when the Morrison family arrived, something was different. The girls moved more slowly, their energy depleted by a night of sleeping in cramped car seats. Marcus looked like he'd aged another 5 years overnight, and there was a resignation in his posture that hadn't been there before. "Mr. Morrison," Travis called out as they began unpacking their supplies with mechanical, hopeless movement. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Marcus approached warily, clearly recognizing Travis but unsure what to expect. Up close, the man looked completely broken, unshaven, clothes wrinkled from sleeping in the car, eyes red-rimmed from exhaustion and stress. "Sir, I want to help your family," Travis said directly. "I can write you a check right now for whatever you need. No strings attached, no publicity, just one parent helping another." The response was immediate and heartbreaking. Marcus's face crumpled with shame and something that looked like physical pain. "Mr. Kelce, I appreciate what you're offering more than you could ever know, but I can't take charity. My daughters aren't beggars. They're workers. They're earning money to save their family, and that matters. It matters to them, and it matters to me. But sir, with respect, the math doesn't work," Travis pressed gently. "Even if they sell lemonade 12 hours a day, they can't possibly raise enough money in time. Let me help them succeed at what they're trying to do." Marcus shook his head firmly. "These girls have already learned more about hard work and determination in the last 3 days than most kids learn in a lifetime. If we take handouts now, what message does that send them about the value of their effort?" Travis watched Lily and Emma setting up their stand with the same methodical determination they'd shown every day, and suddenly understood the impossible position their father was in. This wasn't just about money, it was about preserving these children's sense of agency and self-worth in a situation where they'd already lost everything else. "What if we could bring the customers to them?" Travis asked, a desperate idea forming. "What if we could make sure they had enough people wanting to buy their lemonade? They'd still be earning every dollar through their own work." For the first time since Travis had met him, Marcus Morrison's face showed a flicker of hope. "What do you mean?" "I mean social media. I mean using my platform to let people know about 2 incredible little girls who are fighting to save their family the only way they know how. Not asking for donations, not asking for charity, just asking people to come buy lemonade. 2 kids who refuse to give up." Marcus looked over at his daughters, who were now engaged in what appeared to be a serious discussion about pricing strategy and customer approach technique. These weren't ordinary children anymore. Circumstances had forced them to become tiny adults, carrying responsibilities that would challenge people 3 times their age. "They deserve a chance to succeed at what they're trying to do," Travis continued. "Not to be rescued, but to actually accomplish their goal through their own efforts. I can help make that possible. And if it doesn't work," Marcus asked quietly, "then at least they'll know that someone believed in them enough to give them a real shot. At least they'll know their efforts mattered to someone besides just their dad." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching his daughters practice their sales pitch on each other. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Okay, but on their terms. This has to be about them and their lemonade stand, not about charity or pity. They've maintained their dignity through all of this, and I won't let that be taken away from them now." Travis pulled out his phone and began recording a video, his hands slightly shaking as he realized the weight of what he was about to do. This wasn't just about helping a family more. This was about whether a community would respond when 2 children refused to surrender in the face of impossible odds. "Hey everyone! I'm here with Lily and Emma Morrison, 2 9-year-old entrepreneurs who have something amazing to offer Kansas City," he began, pointing the camera toward the girl. "Their house burned down 8 days ago, and they've decided to save their family by doing what they do best, making the most incredible lemonade you've ever tasted." Both girls looked up from their preparation, surprised to find themselves being filmed but not shying away from the camera. There was something about their presence, their quiet determination mixed with childlike vulnerability, that was immediately compelling. "We're not asking for donations or handouts," Travis continued, echoing Marcus's words. "We're just asking you to come try some lemonade made by 2 kids who believe that hard work and determination can overcome anything. They'll be here at the corner of Main and 5th until they've sold enough lemonade to get their family back on their feet. He filmed the girls demonstrating their lemonade-making process, explaining their pricing, and sharing their story in their own words. What came across wasn't pity or desperation, but genuine pride in their work and unshakable faith that their efforts would succeed. Every cup of lemonade you buy from Lily and Emma is a vote for the idea that kids who work hard and never give up deserve to win. Travis concluded the video. Come meet these amazing girls and taste their amazing lemonade. Trust me, you'll be getting the better end of this deal. He posted the video to his social media accounts without editing or overthinking it. Within minutes, the responses began flooding in. Within an hour, the first customers started arriving. Within 2 hours, there was a line of people waiting to buy lemonade from two little girls who had captured the heart of an entire city. But what happened next was beyond anything Travis had imagined. The crowd kept growing. Cars were parking blocks away, and people were walking to the intersection. Local businesses were closing early so employees could come buy lemonade. News crews from multiple stations were arriving to cover what was rapidly becoming the most uplifting story Kansas City had seen in years. "Mr. Travis," Lily called out, her voice filled with wonder as she looked at the line of customers stretching around the block. "Did you really bring all these people just to buy our lemonade?" "No, Lily," Travis replied, watching her and Emma work with the focused intensity of seasoned professionals despite being completely overwhelmed by the response. "You brought them. I just told them where to find you." As the afternoon wore on and the girls sold cup after cup of lemonade to customer after customer, Travis realized he was witnessing something far more powerful than a simple fundraising effort. He was watching two children prove that sometimes the most extraordinary things happen when ordinary people decide that giving up is not an option. The question now wasn't whether they'd raise enough money to save their family. The question was whether Travis had created something too big for two 9-year-old girls to handle, and whether the circus that was forming around them would help or hurt the children he'd been trying to protect. By 4 o'clock, the situation had escalated beyond anything Travis had anticipated. What started as a social media post had turned into a full-scale community event. The line of customers stretched for 3 blocks. Local news crews were broadcasting live, and city officials were discussing how to manage the traffic congestion caused by hundreds of people trying to buy lemonade from two 9-year-old girls. Travis watched Lily and Emma working with incredible focus, filling cup after cup, while maintaining genuine conversations with every customer. They weren't just selling lemonade, they were connecting with people, sharing their story, and inspiring adults with their unshakable determination. "Thank you so much for coming," Emma said to each customer, her voice never losing its sincerity, despite having repeated the phrase hundreds of times. "This lemonade is made with love and hope. We won't let our family down," Lily added to a group of teenagers who'd driven across town to support them. "Daddy taught us that Morrisons never quit, even when things get really, really hard." But as the crowd grew larger, Travis began to worry about the pressure being placed on these children. They'd been working non-stop for 6 hours. Their small hands were cramping from squeezing lemons, and despite their determined smile, he could see exhaustion creeping in around the edges. Marcus had positioned himself as traffic director, helping organize the line and making sure his daughters weren't overwhelmed by the attention. But Travis could see the conflict playing out on the man's face. Gratitude for the community response, warring with concern about his children becoming spectacle. "Daddy, how much money have we made?" Emma asked during a brief lull in the line. Marcus consulted the notebook where he'd been tracking their sale. "Over $3,000, baby girl. You did it. You saved the family." The reaction from both girls was immediate and overwhelming. They dropped their cups and ran to hug their father, tears of relief and joy streaming down their faces. For a moment, the crowd faded away, and it was just a family celebrating the fact that two little girls had accomplished the impossible through sheer determination. "We really did it, didn't we, Daddy?" Lily asked, her voice filled with wonder. "We really saved everyone?" "You sure did, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you both, I can barely find words." But even as the family celebrated, Travis found himself thinking about his own childhood. His father had lost his job when Travis was 8 years old, and he remembered the helpless feeling of watching his parents struggle while being too young to do anything meaningful to help. He remembered his father's pride, so similar to Marcus Morrison's, that prevented him from accepting help even when the family was facing eviction. He remembered the shame in his mother's eyes when she had to choose between buying groceries and paying the electric bill. Most of all, he remembered the day his father finally swallowed his pride and asked his brother for a loan, and how that decision had saved their family, but cost his father something irreplaceable. "Mr. Morrison," Travis said, pulling Marcus aside as the girls continued serving customers, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "How are you holding up through all this? Really?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching his daughters work with the focused intensity of adults while maintaining the innocence of children. "Honest, I've never been more proud and more ashamed at the same time in my life." "Ashamed? Those are my babies out there carrying a burden that should be mine to carry. They shouldn't have to save their family. I should be the one protecting them from ever having to worry about whether we have a place to sleep tonight." Travis nodded, understanding the complexity of the situation more deeply than he'd initially realized. This wasn't just about money or homelessness. This was about a father watching his children grow up too fast because circumstances had forced them to shoulder adult responsibility. "But look at them," Travis said, gesturing toward Lily and Emma, who were now teaching a group of younger children how to squeeze lemons properly. "They're not just surviving, they're thriving. They're learning that they have power, that their efforts matter, that they can overcome impossible odds through determination and hard work." "I know," Marcus replied, "and that's what makes it so complicated. They're becoming stronger, more confident, more resilient than I ever imagined they could be. But the cost of that shouldn't have been their childhood." As the afternoon wore on, Travis watched the girls interact with their customers and realized something profound was happening. These weren't just transactions anymore. People were staying to talk, sharing their own stories of overcoming difficult time, and drawing inspiration from two children who refused to accept defeat. An elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson bought 10 cups of lemonade and told the girls about losing her house in the Depression and how her family had survived by never giving up hope. A young father brought his 3-year-old son to meet the girls and explained to the boy about the importance of working hard to help your family. "You girls are teaching the whole city something important," said Jake Thompson, a local business owner who'd bought lemonade for his entire staff. "You're showing us what real determination looks like." By 7 o'clock, the girls had sold over 1,500 cups of lemonade and raised more than $8,000. They'd not only saved their family, but created a surplus that would give them stability while Marcus found new employment, and they rebuilt their lives. But more importantly, they'd maintained their dignity throughout the entire process. Every dollar had been earned through their own efforts, and every customer had received exactly what they'd paid for. Lemonade made by two children who believed that hard work could overcome any obstacle. "Mr. Travis," Emma said as they began packing up their supplies, "thank you for believing in us when everyone else thought we were too little to save our family. Thank you for teaching me something I'd forgotten." Travis replied, "that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone isn't to solve their problems for them, but to help them succeed at solving their problems themselves." As the Morrison family packed their supplies into their car, which would take them to a hotel room that night instead of another parking lot, Travis realized that what he'd witnessed wasn't just a successful fundraising effort. It was a masterclass in resilience, dignity, and the power of refusing to surrender in the face of impossible odds. The girls had saved more than their family's housing situation. They'd saved their own sense of agency and self-worth, and in the process, they'd reminded an entire community about the importance of supporting people's efforts to help themselves rather than simply offering charity. "Will you come visit us in our new house?" Lily asked Travis as her family prepared to leave. "I wouldn't miss it," he replied, knowing that these two little girls had taught him more about courage and determination in 3 days than he'd learned in his entire adult life. 3 weeks later, Travis pulled up to a small but well-maintained rental house in a quiet Kansas City neighborhood. The front yard was neat and tidy, with a small garden where someone had planted flowers that were just beginning to bloom. It was the kind of house that spoke to new beginnings and careful tending of hope that had almost been lost. Before he even got out of his car, he could hear familiar voices coming from the backyard. As he walked around the side of the house, he found exactly what he'd hoped to see. Lily and Emma Morris had set up a lemonade stand in their backyard. But this one was different from the desperate makeshift operation he'd first encountered. This stand was built from real wood, painted bright yellow with hand-drawn decorations around the edges. There were proper chairs, a cash box, and even a small chalkboard menu listing different flavors of lemonade. But most importantly, the customers weren't adults driven by pity or social media attention. They were neighborhood children, learning about entrepreneurship from two experts who'd already proven that age was no barrier to success. "Make sure you squeeze the lemons really good," Emma was explaining to a 6-year-old boy who was helping her prepare a batch. "The secret ingredient isn't sugar or water. It's believing that what you're making matters. And always smile at your customers," Lily added, serving lemonade to 2 girls who lived down the street. "Even when you're tired or worried about something, you smile because you're grateful they chose to support what you're doing." Travis watched for several minutes before announcing his presence, struck by how naturally the girls had transitioned from desperate fundraising to teaching other children about work, dignity, and perseverance. They weren't just selling lemonade anymore, they were passing on lessons they'd learned through necessity. "Mr. Travis!" Both girls screamed when they saw him, running over for hugs that nearly knocked him over. "You came to our new house." "I promised I would," he replied, looking around at the scene they'd created. "This is amazing, girls. You've got a real business going here. We're teaching the other kids in the neighborhood about working hard," Emma explained proudly. "Some of them never had jobs before, so we're showing them how to do everything." Marcus appeared from the house, carrying a tray of fresh cups and looking like a completely different person than the broken man Travis had met 3 weeks earlier. He was clean-shaven, wearing clothes that fit properly, and, most importantly, his eyes held hope instead of desperation. "Travis, it's good to see you," Marcus said, setting down the tray and shaking Travis's hand firmly. "The girls have been asking when you were going to visit every single day since we moved in. How are you all adjusting?" Travis asked, though the answer was obvious from the scene around him. "Better than I ever imagined possible," Marcus replied. "I start a new job on Monday. Construction work, good steady pay. Sarah's been going to therapy, and she's doing much better. And the girls," he paused, watching his daughters explain proper change-making to their young customers. "They're still the same determined little warriors they always were, but now they get to be kids too." Travis noticed that despite the success and stability, the girls hadn't lost any of their work ethic or determination. If anything, they seemed more confident and capable than before, comfortable in their role as teachers and mentors to the younger children in their neighborhood. "We decided to keep selling lemonade," Lily explained, approaching with a cup for Travis. "But now it's for fun and to help other kids learn about working. Plus, we're saving money for college." "College?" Travis asked, impressed by their forward thinking. "Daddy says education is the one thing nobody can ever take away from you," Emma added seriously. "So we're going to work hard in school and keep selling lemonade until we have enough money to become whatever we want to be." As the afternoon wore on, Travis watched the girls interact with their customers and realized that what he was witnessing was the long-term impact of their earlier experience. They hadn't just survived a crisis, they'd been transformed by it into young people who understood the value of work, importance of community, the power of refusing to give up. A reporter from the local newspaper arrived to do a follow-up story on the girls, and Travis was struck by how confidently they handled the interview. They weren't the desperate, overwhelmed children he'd first met. They were poised, articulate young entrepreneurs who spoke about their experience with wisdom that seemed far beyond their years. "We learned that when bad things happen, you have choices," Lily told the reporter. "You can give up and feel sad, or you can work harder and find ways to make things better. And we learned that people want to help," Emma added, "but they feel better about helping when you're working hard to help yourself too." See too, when the reporter asked about Travis's role in their success, both girls were quick to correct the narrative. "Mr. Travis didn't save us," Lily said firmly. "He helped people find us so they could buy our lemonade. But we saved ourselves by never giving up and by making really good lemonade. He believed in us when we needed someone to believe in us," Emma added. "But the work was ours, the money was ours, the success was ours." As the sun began to set and the neighborhood children headed home for dinner, Travis helped the girls clean up their stand and count their earnings for the day. They'd made $43, which they carefully divided into 3 envelopes: spending money, savings for college, and a donation to the local homeless shelter. "We want to help other families who are going through what we went through," Emma explained, as she put money in the donation envelope. "Because we know how scary it is when you don't have anywhere to live. And we want them to know that kids can be strong too," Lily added, "that you don't have to wait until you're grown up to help your family." As Travis prepared to leave, Marcus pulled him aside for a private conversation. "I need to thank you for something that goes beyond the practical help you provided," Marcus said. "You gave my daughters something more valuable than money. You helped them maintain their dignity and their sense of agency during the worst time in their lives." "They did that themselves," Travis replied. "I just made sure people knew where to find them." "No, it was more than that. You understood that they needed to be the heroes of their own story, not the victims of someone else's charity. That made all the difference in how they see themselves and how they'll approach challenges for the rest of their lives." As Travis walked back to his car, Lily ran after him with something in her hand. "Mr. Travis, wait!" she called out. "We made this for you." She handed him a hand-drawn card with a picture of their lemonade stand and all the people who had come to support them. Inside, in careful 9-year-old handwriting, was a message that would stay with him forever. "Thank you for not saving us, but for letting us save ourselves. Thank you for showing the world that 2 little girls with big dreams and strong hearts can move mountains when people choose to see us instead of looking away. You didn't give us money. You gave us the chance to earn it. You didn't solve our problems. You helped us prove we could solve them ourselves. Now we know that no matter what happens in life, we have the power to make things better if we work hard and never give up. Love, Lily, and Emma Morrison. P.S. You can always count on us if you ever need help with anything." Travis looked back at the house, where a family that had been hours away from living in their car permanently was now thriving, not because they'd been rescued, but because they'd been empowered to rescue themselves. In the backyard, he could see the wooden lemonade stand that had replaced the cardboard box, and he knew it represented something far more significant than a successful fundraising effort. It represented 2 children who had learned that their efforts mattered, that their work had value, and that they possessed the power to overcome impossible odds through determination and community support. Most importantly, it represented the difference between charity that creates dependence and assistance that creates empowerment. 6 months later, when Travis received an invitation to Lily and Emma's 10th birthday party, he wasn't surprised to learn that instead of asking for presents, the girls had requested that guests bring donations for homeless families. And he wasn't surprised to learn that they planned to use their birthday party as an opportunity to teach other children about the importance of helping people help themselves. The invitation included a photo of the girls standing proudly behind their permanent lemonade stand, which had become a neighborhood institution, and a symbol of what was possible when children were allowed to be heroes in their own story. Written across the bottom in their neat handwriting were the words that had become their motto: "When life gives you impossible situations, make lemonade and never stop believing in yourself." "Oh," Travis smiled as he marked the date on his calendar, knowing that he would be witnessing the continued evolution of 2 remarkable young women who had already changed their community by refusing to accept that 9-year-old girls were too small to save their family. They had proven that sometimes the most powerful help you can offer someone isn't to solve their problems for them, but to ensure the world sees their efforts to solve those problems themselves. In a society that often preferred to give charity rather than create opportunity, Lily and Emma Morrison had demonstrated that dignity, self-reliance, and community support could accomplish miracles that simple handout never could. They had saved more than their family's housing situation. They had saved their own sense of agency and taught an entire city about the difference between helping and empowering. And every time Travis drove past that corner, where he'd first seen 2 desperate little girls selling lemonade with tears in their eyes, he was reminded that sometimes the most extraordinary transformations happen when ordinary people decide that giving up is simply not an option, and when communities choose to support people's efforts to help themselves rather than simply offering charity that diminishes their dignity. The Morrison girls had taught him that true strength isn't measured by how much you can lift others up, but by how effectively you can help them discover they have the power to lift themselves up. It was a lesson he would carry with him forever, and one that would change how he approached every opportunity to help others for the rest of his life.